champagne in the air, style turned all the way up, and a backdrop that feels like something special is happening, but the real magic was never in the sparkle. It was in the pause before the glass touched the lips, in the quiet breath between the music drops, in the subtle glance exchanged across a room full of noise. That night didn't announce itself as unforgettable. It didn't need to. The kind of nights that linger long after they're gone rarely do. They begin like any other, heels clicking against polished floors, cufflinks adjusted under dim golden lights, laughter rising in waves that echo against velvet-draped walls. Everything shimmered. Crystal chandeliers refracted light into 1,000 fleeting rainbows. A live band played something smooth, something indulgent, something that made time feel like it had slowed just enough to be savored. Conversations floated like perfume, sweet, layered, impossible to hold on to completely. He stood near the bar, not because he needed a drink, but because it gave him a vantage point. From there, he could watch the choreography of the evening unfold, people arriving with practiced confidence, others pretending they belonged, some who truly did. Style was everywhere, tailored suits, silk dresses, effortless elegance curated down to the smallest detail, but style, he knew, was just armor, a language people used when they didn't want to say too much. A waiter passed, offering a tray of champagne flutes. He took one absent-mindedly, the bubbles rising like tiny, impatient secrets. He didn't drink immediately. He never did. There was something about anticipation he found more intoxicating than the taste itself. Across the room, a woman laughed, not loudly, not for attention, but in a way that felt genuine. It cut through the polished noise like something real. He noticed her because she didn't seem to be performing. That was rare. Most people in rooms like this were always performing, even in stillness. They were aware of how they looked being still. She wasn't. She stood slightly apart from the crowd, not isolated, just unclaimed by the rhythm everyone else seemed to follow. Her dress wasn't the loudest. Her jewelry didn't demand attention. And yet, there was something about her presence that drew the eye more than any glittering accessory. He watched her for a moment longer than necessary. Then she turned and caught him doing it. There was a split second where either of them could have looked away, pretended nothing had happened, returned to their separate orbits. Neither did. Instead, she raised her glass ever so slightly, a silent acknowledgement, not an invitation, not a challenge, just recognition. He smiled, just enough. That was how it started. Not with a grand introduction or a rehearsed line, not with a dramatic moment that would make for a good story later, just a shared understanding that, somehow, in a room full of people trying to be seen, they had noticed each other for reasons neither could quite explain. He made his way across the room, not hurried, not hesitant, the kind of walk that suggested he wasn't chasing anything but wasn't afraid of finding it either. "Enjoying the spectacle?" he asked when he reached her. She glanced around, as if considering the question seriously. "I think I'm still deciding whether it's a spectacle or a performance." He let out a quiet laugh. "Is there a difference?" "There's always a difference," she said. "A spectacle wants to impress you, a performance wants to convince you. And which do you think this is?" She tilted her head slightly, studying the room again. "A bit of both, which usually means neither is completely honest." He liked that answer. They stood side by side, not facing each other directly, but sharing the same view. It made the conversation feel less like an exchange and more like a mutual observation. "Do you come to these often?" he asked. "Not really," she admitted. "You?" He took a sip of his champagne this time, often enough to know they all start to feel the same. "And yet you're here. And yet I'm here." There was no need to explain further. Some things didn't require justification. People showed up to places like this for all kinds of reasons: habit, curiosity, obligation, loneliness dressed up as sophistication. "What keeps you?" she asked. He considered the question longer than he expected to. "Moments," he said finally. She turned to look at him fully now. "Moments? Yeah, they're rare, but they happen. Something unscripted, something real, just for a second. Everything feels different. And you think tonight might have one of those?" He met her gaze. "I think it already might." She didn't look away. For a moment, the room seemed to soften around them. The music faded just enough. The conversations blurred into a distant hum. The lights felt warmer, closer. And then, just as quickly, it all rushed back in. A burst of laughter nearby, glasses clinking, someone calling her name from across the room. She glanced over her shoulder, then back at him. That's my cue, I think. Of course it is. Neither of them moved immediately. These moments you were talking about, she said, they don't last very long, do they? No, he admitted, but that's kind of the point. She smiled, not sadly, not happily, just knowingly. Then I suppose we shouldn't try to stretch it into something it's not. He appreciated that, more than he expected. No, he said, we shouldn't. She lifted her glass again, this time closer, almost like a quiet toast meant just for the two of them. 2 moments, then. 2 moments. Their glasses touched softly. She turned and walked away, disappearing back into the rhythm of the evening as if she had always belonged to it. He didn't follow. He stayed where he was, finishing his champagne slowly now, watching the room not for spectacle or performance, but for that lingering trace of something real that had just passed through it. Because that was the thing about moments like that. They didn't need to last to matter. They didn't need names, or numbers, or promises of what came next. They existed fully in the space they occupied, complete in their brevity. And maybe that was why they stayed with you longer than anything else. The night went on, as nights like that always do. More arrivals, more laughter, more carefully curated impressions. The band shifted into something livelier. The energy lifted, expanded, became louder, brighter, more insistent. But for him, something had shifted quietly beneath all of that. He wasn't looking for her anymore, not because he didn't want to see her again, but because he understood that what had happened didn't need continuation to be meaningful. That was the mistake people often made. They tried to turn moments into stories, stories into expectations, expectations into something that could be held onto. But not everything was meant to be held. Some things were meant to be experienced and then allowed to remain exactly as they were. Perfect, because they were fleeting. He set his empty glass down and stepped away from the bar, moving through the crowd with a different kind of awareness now, not detached, not indifferent, just present. Someone stopped him to talk. He listened, he responded, he smiled when it felt right. But part of him remained anchored to that quiet exchange near the beginning of the night. A reminder that beneath all the style, all the sparkle, all the carefully constructed scenes people placed themselves in, there was always something else. Something quieter, something real,